A topic for us this morning.
Well, a couple things. Happy anniversary.
30 years. You believe she has stayed with me for 30 years? Wow.
It's been a road. Sometimes it was kind of bumpy, but I'm glad we're here. Happy anniversary.
I love how you look at the world through such positive light because you thought it's just a bumpy road. This was more than a bumpy road. I mean, there were jagged rocks, there were cliffs, there was all sorts of things.
I just thought it was some few bumps, but okay.
Oh, yeah. Well,
perspective. I guess it's perspective.
well, I do
But
think big. We're going to have big bumps. We're not going to do little bumps.
That is kind of what our topic is today, and we do invite you guys to join in if you have any comments or questions or anything. You can either put it in the chat box or unmute yourself and talk to us. But today's topic is about positive mindset. And
what made you decide you wanted to talk about positive mindset, Rebecca?
Part of it was because of a discussion that I was having yesterday with I won't call out anybody, but it was just the discussion. It was a person. Actually, yes, it was a person. It wasn't just myself.
I'm glad it was a person.
But
do you ever have those discussions with yourself, though?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But
I found out that you're better off to just start answering yourself. Ask yourself questions. Just start answering. Just be real.
Well, if I want the right answer, I can answer myself. But
yeah, okay. Or you come to me.
But we were discussing the mindset and how it's so easy to go to the negative. And we started talking about kind of the psychology of it. And our subconscious is formed a lot when we're young, when we're very young, and it depending on how your next year's, I guess, how you grow in the next few years is depending on also how your mindset grows. So if you are in a negative environment as you're growing older, I think it just grows bigger, and things tend to happen in life that can change your mindset. But now that I'm quite a bit older, because I know I struggle with this a lot, I tend to look at the what ifs, and I struggle with the what could be's. And I think a lot of that came from, not that I had a horrible childhood, but there were things that happened in my life when I was young that kind of set the tone and set things up for where my mind goes. Mm-hmm. A lot of worry, worrying about things that you and I have talked about, especially here recently, about things that I can't control, things that I can't, I can worry about it all I want to. It's not going to change anything. And so thinking of because as I was talking to this person, I said, could you imagine how different our life would be if everything that we thought about and looked at was in a positive state? I mean, from the time you wake up in the morning, thanking the Lord for opening my eyes and the breath in my lungs, and then going outside, no matter what it looked like, just, if there's 6 feet of snow or 2 inches of rain or the sun shining, just being thankful for it and just setting the tone for the day. But one of the things, as we've discussed in DISC, if you stub your toe in the morning, kind of changes your behavior. And then it also, I think, affects your mindset for the day. But I do think it can be, reprogrammed. Your mindset can be shifted. But it is an intentional. I think all of these things that we discuss when we discuss these morning meetings, it's intentional. It all has to be intentional. You have to work at it because I think it's easier to go to the woe always me. It's easier to go to the, oh, well, you know, this always happens to me and I'm having such a bad day, and the Eeyore mentality. I think it's easy to go there, but I think it's very intentional to make sure that you work on changing that. I think I said a lot of words in that. Hopefully everybody stayed with me. I think there was about 3 conversations in that one I just had, but
Yeah. Now you guys know what it's like to be me. It's like all these conversations going on at one time.
see, I can
It-
multitask.
In a nutshell, Rebecca, what you're really saying is our natural default mechanism, our natural state goes to the negative.
I think so.
It does. It absolutely does. I mean, think about a child growing up. It gets hungry. It naturally goes into crying mode. If it doesn't get its way, it goes into, upset. It's very, very natural. It's a natural part of the growth process to go towards a negative paradigm. But that's also why it's so important as parents that we raise children understanding what it means to move into the positive. Intentionality, move them to a positive state, which is also a state for ourselves. And there's all different types of mindset. You have a growth mindset, you have a success mindset, you have a money mindset, you have so many different mindsets. But in every mindset that you have, which is really your belief system, part of your paradigm of who you are, every one of those aspects is either going to be on the positive or it's going to be on the negative. That's just the way it is. And like you said, we have to choose the positive. It's an intentional choice. And that is not always an easy choice. Because one of the things that we talk a lot about, and I know this has been a struggle for you, I'll put it right.
I have
right
a lot
on
of struggles, if you guys haven't noticed, but
But I know this has been a struggle for you. It's been a struggle for me. But I know in recent weeks it's been a struggle for you quite a bit, and that's the idea of ownership mindset. Taking ownership, especially in something that you were not the cause of, right? That is very much a challenge for you, right? I've learned it, or I'm learning it. I've accepted it at least, that when things go south, just this morning when we couldn't get our software to work, I'm like, what is going on? Why would these people do this to, and then I'm sitting there thinking, I stop myself and I look at it and go, no, it's not their fault. I should know when my subscriptions are going to run out. I need to take ownership in this. I need to know when things are at risk because I bought the software. I own it. I am in that control element. And those are the kind of things that we have to bring back to the positive. And when you take ownership in yourself, ownership in your attitude, when you own your mindset, you have a choice to leave it in a negative state or move it to a positive very intentionally.
right. Well, I was always raised it was better to give than receive. So if I give you ownership of everything, anything that isn't, I thought that's how that worked.
Well, of course it is. Exactly. 30 years. You just
Well,
take
and
it.
part of that is, and that's kind of what we discussed yesterday too, is the things that we say, and how we say them, the things that we say to ourselves. And I've noticed, like, this weekend we got to do corn with our kids and grandkids, and it was
We
wonderful.
got to do corn. It was an amazing experience, by the way.
Yes.
I love doing that stuff with the family. It's so much fun.
So
It's a privilege.
thankfully we got 63 bags of corn. Excited about that, but as I'm watching the grandkids and Kylan was talking to Everly and Foster and going, "Come on over and help shuck corn," and as our kids were, "Oh man, this is going to be hot and sticky," and not that they were whining, they were just joking, but the grands were listening to that, so when it came time for them to come over and help, they're like, "Oh, we don't want to do this. Can we go play? Can we go do something else?" But
Yeah.
by the time we got done, They were having a blast.
Yeah.
They had a really good time, and but it's just that the how we say things and perceive things, and the littles are always watching, but it also when we say things, our subconscious takes that and runs with it.
Yep. Yep. So that subconscious element, Rebecca, this is something that we talk a lot about because there's a space, and I know this was part of your conversation
Weird
yesterday.
to hear you
There's-
call me
there-
Rebecca, but go ahead. Sorry.
Huh?
I said it's weird to hear you call me Rebecca, but go ahead,
What do I normally call you?
dear.
Oh,
But anyway,
okay. So now I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Mindset, subconscious. One of the things that we want to think about, and this is a challenge again for people too. The brain is not the mind. The mind is not the brain. There's two totally different elements there. And the conversation I know that you were having yesterday, there was a lot of emphasis on brain power, which is the conscious thought. The brain is doing so many different things, but in terms of thinking, in terms of action, in terms of making choices, you have to look at the subconscious element and the conscious element. The subconscious is a part of our creation designed to do a couple of different things. Well, designed to do a lot of things, but primarily it's designed to keep us alive. It's designed to keep us safe. It's designed to keep the operating system of the body. It's designed to keep the body elements working and successful. So the subconscious elements of our body are motivating us and moving us in the direction of what is known as a paradigm. There's a subconscious belief system that motivates us and drives us. And like you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the word reprogramming. There are times when you have to reprogram that thinking, that subconscious thinking. And when you start really diving deep into mindset and understanding what mindset really is, and this is something that I'm studying every day in some capacity, because it intrigues me. It absolutely intrigues me how this body works. And one of the things I learned from a psychologist here a while back is we're a spiritual being with an intellect, and I have a physical body. So I am a spiritual being, I have an intellect, and I live in a physical body. And that physical body, part of that is the brain. The brain is like that one tool that keeps everything, active and moving. You've got to have good brain power. But at the end of the day, what motivates a lot of fear, what motivates a lot of our success patterns or non-success patterns are what are ingrained into the subconscious mindset, the subconscious element, which ties in very, very deeply to that spiritual element that sits within us. And that is honestly where I have had to test my own belief systems. I've had to test the things that I grew up with. I had to test what I was taught from a religion standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a money standpoint. I've had to test my subconscious belief system multiple times when you hear different things from different people. And the thing that I learned a long time ago is to take ownership in that. And it's to say that, Kylan, you may not be right. You may not be right. You may be simply believing what someone taught you 30, 40 years ago. That's what I may be believing, is something that my parents believed. I may be believing something that they didn't even know they were wrong on, but they were believing it, and they believed it their whole life. And I see these patterns happen all the time. And that's why I think we have to test everything in our life, test the subconscious, because it's very easy to be in a negative state of mind subconsciously when we think we believe wholeheartedly that we're positive, that we're good, that we're on the positive outcome of this, and yet we're not. And that's what's been such a mind-opening experience for me, like subconscious mind-opening experience, when I began to really review things like religion. For me, a big part was on the religious side, and growing up in the churches that I grew up in, and growing up with the belief systems that I have, it really began to allow me to see things like the Bible from a totally different perspective. And it took the religion out of it. Religion is not fun. And when I started to really separate out what is true, what is right, what is real, and I didn't care about all the religious stuff. I cared about what was true, what was right, what was real. And I began to realize there's so many things that we've been taught over just years of tradition that simply are not right. They
Right.
just are not right. And when I begin to realize those elements were actually creating in me a negative attitude,
Right.
that was such a game changer for me. So many of those old style beliefs were negative attitudes, were it was motivating in me a negative attitude, and I didn't even realize it.
I did.
Yeah,
And you don't like it, me.
I'm sure you
don't
probably
like
did.
it when I tell you you're wrong.
Yeah, but that is, long story short. That's a lot of words to come back and say when we're thinking about mindset, and we're thinking about being intentional in it. We have to think about our subconscious, the paradigms that we have built into our hearts and minds over years and years and years of just consistent training. The Bible says it this way: what you think about, you will become. You really will. You absolutely, as a man thinketh, so is he. And that is there's so much truth into that. And we have been trained for years and years and years on what to think. And what we have to do is train ourselves very consistently all the time on what it means to think, how to think, what are the processes of thinking through a concept, or thinking through a process, thinking through our belief systems. And those are things that you have to intentionally do if you're ever going to fully grasp the concept of thinking.
Well, I guess, people wake up in the morning, and if they're in a negative mindset, it just kind of travels with them through the day. And the concept of somebody being nice or something nice happening through their day, they kind of miss it. They don't really recognize it. And I think that's a difficult, if your perception is always negative, it's hard to see the positive. And there's a video that goes around, and I love watching it. And it's a car that stops, and they ask people a question. And when you first hear the question, it's kind of like, well, what are you saying to me? And then they give them a compliment, and the smiles that it puts on people's faces, because they're not used to that in the world that we live in right now. It's a very, very negative world.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it's hard to see that light, or see that positivity, see those compliments, because people are expecting, I think when they're in that negative mindset, they just expect the worst.
Mm-hmm.
They expect the worst from people. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I have to work on, is being in that mindset and knowing that people are good. I mean, we work in the people business, and sometimes I get a little leery of people, and it's not because of the person, it's because of past experiences. And it sets that negativity in there, and working through that and knowing that people are good. People are good. People are good in the core.
Yeah. Well, so let's use that concept, because there's a religion element in what you just talked about, with people being good at the core. And that was one of the things that I had to really get my head wrapped around, because I was taught that the opposite was true. I was taught from the earliest ages that people are bad, that we are born into sin, that we are in this bad state from the very beginning. And this is why it's so important what you tell kids. You've got to be careful how you tell kids things,
Yep.
right? Because raising up a kid and telling them all the time that you're born into sin, you're born with this bad nature, you're born into all these things. And from a spiritual standpoint, from a creator standpoint, that's true. But at the end of the day, they forget talking about the fact that we're the crown jewel of God's creation, the crown jewel, and we've been given a free will with the right to choose. And no matter who we are, we're loved to the utmost. But when you're a little kid and you're in these, hellfire and brimstone churches, I mean, that is ingrained into you. And by default, you begin to see the world from that negative mindset, that negative space, like people are bad, people are naturally bad. And that, I honestly believe that drives things like, don't talk to strangers, don't do this, don't do that. You just don't, all these things, because the world is evil, the world is bad.
Right.
But the reality is, like you said, there are so many good people out here. The world is absolutely full of amazing people that are on a journey. They're on a life journey. They're on a journey where they're seeking the truths in their life. And if we're not in a positive state, we don't even know how to connect with them. We don't see them as good. We don't see them as a person with potential. If we're not in that space where we see people as good, we see them as good, whole creations of God, and someone who has immense value. We have to see them there, and help them see that if they have negativity in their life, if they're, help them see that sin nature, which, yes, I believe that we all have, but at the end of the day, we're amazing creations.
God don't make no junk.
No, absolutely not. I think it's absolutely right. We want to see people in a very, very positive light. See them for who they are. It's why in our leadership training, especially on the sales side of the leadership training, it is not our place to disqualify someone who is qualified. It is not our place to disqualify. They have to disqualify themselves.
Right.
And that is where we teach in this space to be open to truth and the reality of who people are. Who you are matters way more than what you do.
Yep.
Way more than what you do.
All right, guys, we're getting down to the last few minutes. And anybody have any comments on positive mindset? Anything you want to share or questions? We are open.
Yeah, anybody on Zoom can jump in. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, send us a message. We'll be getting back to you.
All right, Randy.
Awesome. Let's hear it, buddy. Hmm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Randy, I know that, you've had some highs and lows and ups and downs in your life. And Is there anything in your life that you'd be open to sharing that, could have gone very, very negative or could have changed the whole of your life if you wouldn't have, if you were not looking at it from a positive light? Have you had some of those experiences? Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, yeah. That's a great example, Randy. It really is, and I think that's it's also a great way for us to start bringing this to a close. Randy's Randy, your story. You mentioned right at the beginning of your comments that um, it's being intentional and having that intentional attitude, an intentional choice, an intentional mindset. Right?
It's a choice, I know.
It's a choice. So, Randy, I greatly appreciate that. I think that'll be a great landing place for us here today, as we start to just land this ship and bring this session to a close. Because my challenge to each of you, from a leadership standpoint, a business standpoint, a family standpoint, I'm going to challenge you to be intentional, just like Randy just said. Be very intentional. Choose the positive attitude. Choose the positive. But in order to choose it, you have to be aware of it. Be aware of what things in your life you may not be positive on. Even if you think you're positive about it, you might believe you're positive. You might believe that it's good in your thinking. Challenge yourself. Raise your awareness of how you see things. Raise your awareness of how you see the world and you see people. Raise your awareness of how you view competition. Raise your awareness of how you even view your own subconscious paradigms. Raise your awareness and just test, am I positive? And challenge yourself to grow to that next level. Just like Randy said, be intentional. Intentional first with awareness. Raise your awareness of where you're positive and where you need improvement. What do you think, Rebecca?
I think that's great advice. I think it's, you know, it's a work. I'm a work in progress.
Oh, we all are. Yeah, we're all a work in progress. We will all be working in progress until the day we die. And then you're free to release me from the work in progress.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it, and hope you guys are getting some learning out of these
Getting some
little
value. Yeah.
Monday morning chats. We enjoy it. And if you guys have anything that you want to discuss or have any ideas for some topics, please, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And appreciate you guys getting out of the comfort zone. Ryan, I know it's super early out in your part of the world, so thank you for jumping on. Brad and Randy, you guys are awesome on the other side of the world from Ryan, but just really, really appreciate all of these guys jumping in.
Ryan,
Appreciate-
did you wake up whistling and singing this morning?
from Austria. He's out. The sound. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's a. Those of you who may not know Ryan, he was in Austria in training this last week, and beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful
it looked
pictures.
like it was an awful trip
Oh
too.
man, it just looked horrible. That
yeah.
is one of my.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of my go-to places. We are going to go to Austria.
Yes,
my
that's
my favorite movie. Just so you guys know, is The Sound of Music. I love The Sound of Music. I love the history of The Sound of Music. I love
you
the
like to sing the
structure.
songs too.
Yeah, okay, I like the songs, but that's one of the things I'm going to do before I die is I'm going to go sing through the hills.
I know you're going to stand up there just like Julie Andrews, and
Oh,
I
it's
will
gonna be fun.
videotape it. Don't worry.
One of these days. All right, guys, thank you so much for being who you are.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and with that, happy anniversary, Rebecca.
Thank you.
It's been an amazing ride, and I'm looking forward to the next 30.
Me too.
We'll see if we can smooth out the road a little bit in the next 30.
Yeah, I'm ready to cruise. I'm ready to cruise.
All right. God bless everybody. Make it awesome.